What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of First Fruits of Zion Reacts. If you like this video, head over to FFOZ.org and make a free account. We have loads of free content for you, and if you make an account, well, there's a little something in it. There's a little something in it for you. You can get a free gift from First Fruits of Zion. So check that out. In the meantime, we are reacting to another short social media clip, a social media short we're going to see what it says, and we're going to see what I say. We'll see. We'll find out right now.
This is what the Lord of armies, the God of Israel, says. Add your burnt offerings to your sacrifices and eat flesh. For I did not speak to your fathers or command them the day that I brought them out of Egypt concerning burnt offerings and sacrifices. Any good Christian will tell you the Bible contains no contradictions, it's perfect, it's never been altered, and the ironic fact is the Bible itself says that it's been altered in the book of Jeremiah, but especially Jeremiah rails against this idea that God never commanded sacrifices. Moses never commanded sacrifices. But this is what the Essenes, Ebionites, Nazarenes, the Jewish Jesus movement Christians of the first century were hammering over and over. And we're going to go through the quotes for you guys. They were saying, the scriptures have been changed and altered by the lying pens of the scribes to include this demonic practice of animal sacrifice because it's a profit system. It's extremely lucrative business in those days to have people buying animals for sacrifice. And so you've turned my father's house into a den of thieves and all of that. But numbers of the prophets, right? Amos, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Hosea, rail against sacrifices in the Old Testament and say, God never commanded these. This is an abomination to God. They're saying God has never commanded this. It's always been an abomination. And many of the prophets quote God as saying, put away from me the smell of your disgusting burnt offerings. I turn my nose away at your incense. I want a righteous heart, a repentant heart. That's my sacrifice.
Wow, what a banger. I love that music. You're supposed to say something nice before you criticize somebody. Well, let's unpack this. The idea here is that God never commanded sacrifice, and that all the passages in the Bible where sacrifices enjoined upon God's people were made up by greedy people who stood to make a profit from the sacrificial system. Wow. What an interesting viewpoint. So that chapter in Jeremiah, let's bring that up here on the old computer. I think it'll be important to see it in context before we move on to the broader idea here. And there's a broader idea, maybe several. So this is Jeremiah 7. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Stand in the gate of the Lord's house and proclaim there this word and say, hear the word of the Lord, all you men of Judah who enter these gates to worship the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, amend your ways and your deeds, and I will let you dwell in this place. Do not trust in these deceptive words. This is the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. For if you truly amend your ways and your deeds, if you truly execute justice one with another, if you do not oppress the sojourner, the fatherless, or the widow, and if you do not go after other gods to your own harm, then I will let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave of old to your fathers forever. Behold, you trust in deceptive words to no avail. Will you steal, murder, commit adultery, swear falsely, make offerings to Baal, and go after other gods that you have not known, and then come and stand before me in this house, that's the temple, which is called by my name, and say, we are delivered, only to go on doing all these abominations? Has this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes? That is a little. You remember that verse being referenced by Jesus in the New Testament? Behold, I myself have seen it, declares the Lord. Go now to my place that was in Shiloh, where I made my name dwell at first, and see what I did to it because of the evil of my people Israel. The tabernacle was there in Shiloh for a while. And now because you've done all these things, all those wicked things of the injustice and the idolatry and so forth, declares the Lord, when I spoke to you persistently, you did not listen. When I called to you, you did not answer. Therefore, I will do to the house that is called by my name, in which you trust, and to the place that I gave to you and your fathers, as I did to Shiloh. And I will cast you out of my sight, as I cast out all your kinsmen, all the offering of Ephraim. Because the northern kingdom went into exile before the southern kingdom in 721 or 722 BCE. Have you apprehended the problem as Jeremiah has described it so far. The problem is that the people of the southern kingdom of Judah in that time were breaking the Sinai covenant. And specifically, the things Jeremiah calls out here are, there's probably two main ones. One is that they're giving offerings to Baal. They're committing idolatry. And the other is there's just injustice, and people are being oppressed, and life is bad for large numbers of people who are just they're not getting the justice they deserve. If crimes are committed against them, they're not receiving justice. And instead of fixing those problems, the people are coming to the temple and offering sacrifices and saying, like, all right, we good. Like, this is fine. This will absolve us from everything. And we'll sacrifice to Baal too, so I cover all of our bases. So we'll have peace with the gods through this sacrificial system, and it doesn't actually matter how we treat each other. And Jeremiah, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, talks about how this sickens God. And this is, as you find throughout the prophets, this repeated phrase. It's in several of the prophets. It says, I hate your show and your pretense. Instead, let there be a flood of justice. Like, there's all these, the sacrifices of God in the Psalms. The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit and a contrite heart. And you find over and over this idea that bringing a sacrifice to the temple doesn't clear you to go on sinning, right? Like, even Paul says this: "Shall we go on sinning that grace may abound?" Heaven forbid. Like, whatever mechanism God has put in place for atonement, right? The sacrifices atoned for ritual uncleanness, things like that. And Jesus' sacrifice atones for sin. And in both cases, they don't provide a license to go on sinning. It's not like, oh, I paid my dues, I can go back to the amoral or unrighteous lifestyle that I become accustomed to. Well, it's not the case. And what God says through the prophets is, look, the sacrifices smell bad, like, because you're offering them like disingenuously, and your spirit and heart are not broken or contrite, and you're just willfully sinning and sinning and sinning. I don't appreciate these sacrifices. Like, they're not availing what you think they're availing. They're not accomplishing what you think they're accomplishing. Our relationship is not okay just because you've offered some sacrifices. And yeah, you find it all through there. This is why God says through Jeremiah here, like, I'm going to have the temple be destroyed. Like, that's going to be I'm going to make it into an object lesson for you, and you're not going to be able to offer those sacrifices anymore. So this would be a mistake you won't make again. You'll have to realize that it's your behavior, your fidelity to the Sinai covenant, whether you obey me. That's what really matters, much more than the ritual components of your religion, namely the animal sacrifices in the temple. This is whence comes the anti-sacrifice or anti-temple rhetoric that you find in wherever you find it in the Old Testament. First of all, linking together the injustice with the temple system and saying that it's a profit system. I understand that you could see these ideas juxtaposed in this chapter of Jeremiah. And were there priests at some time in the history of Israel that just saw the temple as an opportunity to accumulate wealth? I mean, look at the Sadducees. That was who they were. They wanted to be in charge of the temple because they wanted incredible wealth. And look what happened to them, right? When's the last time you met a Sadducee? So, you find this even in like good commentaries on Jeremiah. Brueggemann's commentary back there on the shelf, and he points this out. And I don't think it's entirely wrong. I think that, a system is only as good as the people who are running it, and bad people can make a good system unworkable, and good people can make a bad system work. But just because a generation of priests has sort of usurped the sacrificial system in that way. It's sort of like, a papal indulgence or something like that. Just because that happens doesn't mean the system is bad. So that's what I have to say about that. Now, the big idea of this video is that God never commanded about sacrifices, and that all the references to animal sacrifice there in the Bible were added later by corrupt scribes. And this is wild, man. Like, I don't even know what to say to you if you believe that. If you believe that the Bible that we have has been redacted by wicked people who have changed all the words and added a bunch of things to mislead you. I don't know, man. You can just throw out whatever parts you want. Like, if you don't believe the Bible, then you could start any religion you want. You could just say whatever you want. Like, if you don't think the Bible is inspired. So I think, if you believe this, God help you, you're gonna end up starting a cult or something. This idea that animal sacrifices are barbaric and that God never liked them. It's one of those ideas that's very attractive to modern sensibilities, because in our modern world we pretty much discount the spiritual. We pretty much discount the miraculous and the unseen, and the idea that killing an animal might affect some change in a concept like ritual purity, which is hard to understand. It's not something you can see or sense with your senses or test with a scientific instrument. Just tossing all these things is something that is appealing to a post-Enlightenment generation, where we expect that the only things we can truly know are the things that we can assess through our senses or through scientific tools. But this is not really a biblical worldview. And as a very simple way to disprove what this guy is saying, what you find in Acts numerous times is that the apostles and the community that coalesced around them, the early Jesus community in Jerusalem, they met in the temple. They met in the temple where all the sacrifices were happening. They prayed at the times of the sacrifices. And in Acts 21, when Paul comes back to Jerusalem for the last time, he completes a Nazirite vow with 4 other believing Jewish people and offers some animal sacrifices at the temple that are required for the completion of a Nazirite vow for himself and for five people's worth of sacrifices. It's a lot of sacrifices. So we find that the apostles are still engaging with the sacrificial system before the destruction of the temple. So that's the simple answer is that this guy, everything that this guy said was wrong. It was 100% wrong. Although I love that music. I think it was very stirring, and I'd put it on for a workout. An epic workout, going for a personal best. But don't worry about any of the things he said. Everything he said was wrong. All right, well, that's about all the time we have for today. Head over to FFOZ.org and get yourself on the right track with studying the scriptures from a Messianic Jewish perspective. It will help inoculate you against viral videos like this that are full of nonsense. Thanks for watching.